Today's episode of Hollyweird Paranormal, we will be discussing about pet loss and pet grief and the afterlife of our pets. Do they come back? Are they always with us? And the perfect person to discuss about all these topics is paranormal researcher and author Nicole Strickland. Nicole Strickland has been interested in the supernatural since childhood, and in addition to her innate psychic and empathic abilities, Nicole's experience in the field of counseling, education, psychology, and social work give her a unique perspective on studying the unknown. She is known for her gentle and humble approaches to working with the spirit realms, her clients, and the paranormal field at large. Strickland is one of the leading West Coast afterlife and paranormal researchers. She's the founder and director of the well-respected San Diego Paranormal Research Society and California coordinator to the Ghost Research Society. Damn, Nicole. Nicole is also a consultant to the American Spectral Association. And Nicole also holds a BA degree in media arts journalism from the University of Arizona and an MS in educational counseling from National University. She plans to pursue a PhD in parapsychology. On top of everything, Nicole has written several books, including Field Guide to Southern California Hauntings, The Haunted Queen of the Seas, The Living Legend of the RMS Queen Mary, Spirited Queen Mary, Her Haunted Legend, RMS Queen Mary, Voices from Her Voyages, San Diego's Most Haunted, The Historical Legacy and Paranormal Marvels of America's Finest City, Spirits of Rancho, Buena Vista, Adobe, Max and Kayli, Two Remarkable Felines, Forever Imprinted on My Heart, The Afterlife Chronicles, exploring the connection between life, death, and the beyond, and Women on the Fringe, groundbreaking women in the paranormal with Marie D. Jones and Denise Agnew. So let's get Hollyweird with paranormal researcher, investigator, and author Nicole Strickland. Trigger warning. This episode contains discussions about pet loss and pet grief. If you're struggling with the emotional pain and suffering resulting from the death of your furry companion, there is a hotline that you can reach out to, and it's called Lap of Love Pet Loss and Bereavement Resource Line. You can reach them at 855-352-5683. I don't know how to start this episode because we lost a member of our Hollyweird family. If you've been with us since the very beginning of Hollyweird Paranormal, you would remember that I adopted a beautiful little boxer named Mia, and you may have heard her drink her bowl in the middle of our recording.
Yes,
or sit,
timing is everything.
Lick Bryce's feet because she loved to give you more attention than me whenever you were over, and or you would probably heard her her tags on her collar jingle whenever she did her what we called the waka wakas when she would shake. So for many of you that have been out of the loop, it's been now 10 days. Mia had passed away. She had many complications. She was 5.5 years old, and she had been misdiagnosed for many years. So we were told she had a lot of mucus, and we were told, oh, it's just allergies. And then we started to see other red flags. She was eating a lot more. She gained weight. She gained a little pot belly. She was losing hair. She soon started to lose interest in playing and walking. And I mean, we tried everything. We tried taking her to different vets. We even went to Mexico, and we got something there. And then we were finally put in contact with this amazing internal doctor who ended up finding out that Mia had Cushing's in the pituitary. And then she had HGE, which is a GI infection, inflammation. And she also had chronic to severe rhinitis, which was the cause of her mucus. And she was misdiagnosed with allergies before then and hyperthyroidism. And so like our guest story that you're going to hear, it's like right when we were about to put her on all these treatments, it was already too late.
Yeah.
She had succumbed to pneumonia, and that led to other complications that definitely did her in. And she passed last week on Wednesday. And
yeah,
I know. So I'm surprised I'm not breaking down yet, but
yeah,
it was a pretty unexpected and horrific loss. And one of the things that I learned from Mia is grief, and especially anticipatory grief, because a month before her passing, I just felt like this could be it, and it was. But yeah, but I feel like this is also like a precursor for me and my mom, who's not doing too well with her Parkinson's, but it's preparing me for what's to come. And I'm kind of getting there myself, but
that's so important to talk about, like how grief is not something that occurs once the event happens. There is a pre-grief that is sort of wrapped up, and it's the journey. All of it is part of the journey. So we want to talk about these things as if they're reactionary, but that's not like really the full picture of what happens. Like, we as humans understand grief in the abstract and in concrete ways, and those sort of intermingle with each other in such, like, unfortunately very difficult but very like powerful ways.
Most definitely.
And so many things are, like, we talk about, it's energy, it's the journey, it's the process. Like, these things all weave together in ways that unfortunately we don't always understand, because 5 years is obviously a very short amount of time. But she was so full of love and full of like life.
Yeah, she definitely was. If you knew her, you met her, you just know that she loved you. You may have seen her in the live show. She was at our live show at Heritage Square.
Yes, she was the star of the show.
She was the star of a show. At one point, when I started talking, my husband was like, when you started talking on stage, she went straight to, like, she was trying to pull the leash
she
to
was
go
ready. She's like, oh, there she is. Hello.
And I just remember at one point, like, looking over at her and just seeing her, and she was bathed in this like little golden spotlight in the venue, and just looking at her and seeing how proud she was. Like,
oh, damn.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Told you guys I was gonna cry. But
who did this to Tammy? One of our listeners is in trouble. They are fired.
But yeah, that was who she was. She was a very selfless dog, but selfish when it came to Cheez-Its. She loved Cheez-Its.
Okay, well, who isn't? Come on.
She embodied all of us. She loved to eat and drink, so there you go. But she was a very resilient and very loving animal, and she is definitely going to be missed. And the other topic that we'll be touching too, aside from pet grief and loss, is afterlife. Do our pets come back? And we've talked about this, Bryce, many times on other episodes, especially the listeners' tales. We've heard it from our listeners how, like, they've gotten visitations from past loved ones, especially their furry loved ones too. And you guys will hear in this episode a couple of things happened to myself and Bryce. Something happened to me before the interview. I was recording something on TikTok. And I was asking the questions, do pets come back in the afterlife? And I got a confirmation. So you'll hear that in the episode. And then Bryce, Finn did something weird in the middle of
weird, but look, if it's weird for him, like, I don't know how many people follow what's been happening in Southern California, but we recently had a quote unquote hurricane, which was it was not a hurricane.
Oh, yes.
And then we had an earthquake amidst said tropical storm. So we were having quite a lot. And like, people always talk about, like, oh, our animals like knew something. He could not have been he will not warn me if there's an earthquake or a tidal. Like, I'm gonna die for sure, because he was just under his blanket living his best life. I was like, did we just have an earthquake laid out? Like, so if it's weird for him, it's very weird, because he could not be less concerned about existing. So
Yeah, but he did something out of the
Never
ordinary
do
that,
that.
I mean, the
Yeah.
many times that we've had like our Zoom interviews or if I
Oh
recorded
yeah.
there, yeah, he's never displayed this type of behavior before, which was really, really
No.
interesting.
And
And
like the timing of it was super weird because I wasn't the one talking and I'm wearing my headphones, so he can't hear you.
which is
Uh, Light
pretty.
spoiler, I guess. I don't know. Skip ahead if you don't want to hear this, but it was interesting because it was when you were talking about the peace that you were feeling on the walk, and that's all. Excuse me. That's all I'll say, so that people can not have it spoiled or whatever. But I find it very interesting that he was doing what he was doing while you were talking about that experience because he wasn't even listening to me. I mean, he's not listening to me right now. He's under his blanket, like he's not paying attention. So it's just very interesting that that was happening while you were talking about that. So I don't know. What a weird little guy.
I know, what a weird little dude. But I mean, there was a lot of weird things that were going on before and
Yes.
during. So I think I mentioned this either,
Mm.
but people even asked to, has Mia sent me signs? And I know that
Mm-hmm.
our animals who have passed over definitely send us signs. And there's two very small ones I wanted to share real quickly before we go into the interview. So the first one was
Yeah.
the day after Mia's passing. I was staying with my friend in our old neighborhood, the Pocket. And if you guys remember my old neighborhood, I've done a couple investigations there and
Mm-hmm.
we had a lot of friends there because of Mia. That was the neighborhood that she was raised in. And we ran
Yeah.
into a neighbor who, we ended up talking to, and it turned out she lost an animal like a month prior. And I told her about Mia and we,
Mm.
cried, we embraced, we talked.
Aw.
And in the middle of talking to her about Mia and what happened, there was this like June bug flying over us. It scared my friend and my neighbor. They were screaming, but for me, I was like calm because I grew up in the South. I'm used to all these insects.
Truly.
I lived in Honduras for a couple of months, so I'm used to seeing all these things. And I was like, oh, that's actually one of my favorite insects is the June bug beetle. I
Huh.
love beetles, especially like the Egyptian symbolism of the beetle.
Mm.
It's very
Yeah.
fascinating. But this
Mm.
beetle flew and it landed on my stomach and it was this green beautiful beetle and it just like stayed there for
Mm.
several minutes. I ended up, petting its back. It was beautiful and soft and then it flew away and I said thank you. And then my friend's like that might be Mia. I'm like I don't know. It's a beetle. And she's like you never know. I mean there could be a symbolism to it. So I
Yeah.
texted my friend, another friend of mine. I took a picture of that beetle on my stomach. I texted her that picture later in the day and she messaged me with this. She found a link and she said the symbolism of a June bug beetle, especially a green June bug beetle, is it symbolizes abundance, renewal, revival, and rebirth.
Wow.
And it's a good luck charm. So I was like, oh my God, that's
Amazing.
really interesting. Another thing that happened too kind of correlates with just happened when I was recording this video earlier. So I was in the house by myself, and part of
Mm.
I guess my grief journey is like I was thinking maybe I could
Mm.
donate my time to a boxer rescue. So I was
Yeah.
online with the Boxer Rescue LA to read their volunteer information, and then I went on their adoption list just to see their dogs. And there
Totally.
was this one dog named Azalea that looked identical to Mia. And I was just gushing over this dog and how
Crazy.
identical she looked like to Mia. And out of nowhere, I heard this very loud knock behind me on the wooden staircase. And it made
Wow.
me jump and turn around because the house makes noises, but this was a
Sure.
different noise. And it's very similar to the one that I heard earlier before our interview.
Wow.
And for some reason, I said, Mia, don't worry. Don't be jealous. I'm not
Aha.
going to replace you because when Mia was alive, I could never pet another animal in front of her. I could
Of
never,
course.
yeah, I can never be near one. She always got jealous. So I feel
Hilarious.
that that was probably her being a little jealous and telling me, hey, mom, snap out of it, like, no, 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 not right
Mark
now.
the territory. Yeah.
Exactly. So those were the
That's
two little
hilarious.
things that I noticed. And then now the third one was what happened to me that I'll talk about in this interview. And
Yes.
yeah, especially Nicole. But yeah, our pets
Oh,
do
she's so
come
sweet.
back. We're a firm believer of that. They do give us
Mm.
signs. And if we're open to it, we can definitely be able to read those signs and take them into recognition. But you've also gone through pet loss and pet grief. Like, what was your journey like?
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting. I kind of talk about this in the episode, and I've talked about this before. My experience is like our dog growing up. It was really like my parents' dog. I was
Mhm.
very active in high school, especially. Like I would leave the house at like 5 a.m. and I would not get back until like 10 p.m. So like you just don't realize the number of hours that like you're not there. And like it was our family dog, like of course. But she really was my parents' dog in many ways. And it wasn't until I got Finn that I was like, oh, this is like mine and my roommates, but really my dog.
Mhm.
And I talk about this in the episode as well. And my ex-boyfriend, whatever else he was, tee he did do, he would do some tarot and some like astrology and numerology and things like that. And one of the things that came up a lot was I just always would get I always pull a lot of cups in tarot. It's very specific.
Interesting.
Like she's a cup girl. Um yeah, a lot of cups pull for me. And it's very intense because it's like how many times can the universe like tell me the same thing? And like,
Yeah.
I get it. Thank you. Which I guess is like I'm not learning the lesson, so that's on me. But one thing that often, if not every time, comes up is that like the page of swords, the page of cups are both like very prominent in all of my times getting pulled, like to the point where like the card will jump out.
Oh my
Um,
God.
yeah, it's very intense.
Oh.
And my ex-boyfriend used to always say, and again, grain of salt this, but he would always say, like, that is Finn in your life. Like where it would manifest in the chart a lot of the time
Yeah.
would be like companion pet type numerology, I guess, or
Yeah.
tarot. Um, so yeah, again, the source is a little tricky because I think he also sometimes would like manipulate the deck to like say what he wanted it to say. So like grain of salt, all of this. But the reason I bring all of that up is that like Finn is very like much my like there is something there that's like very intense and connected. So yes, I have gone through pet grief. It's just different when you're a kid because it's sad. It's so sad. It's still like super impacting, but it's just it for us, it was like I was in college and I've been away for a couple of years and yeah, it was just different. So I think it's just tougher when it's yours, you know?
Yes. When you have more of
And
a stronger
then
connection, because like you said, I mean, that dog was more your parents' dog.
yeah.
Like they're the
And
ones
then
that
my
took care of
sister
it
and her
more.
boyfriend,
Yeah.
totally. My sister
Yeah.
and her boyfriend did just go through, and it's very interesting. We actually always have. We kind of talk about this in the episode. I'm just going to spoil the whole episode for everybody. Um, we talked about this in the episode, but we have always been a get a dog kind of family,
I
like
remember.
after
Yeah.
the fact. And
Yeah.
for us, it's very interesting because Nicole, our guest on this episode, see, I can segue. Um, she talks about like honoring their legacy, and for us, my experience has been having a dog has really helped fill the silence, not replace them, but the silence has always been very difficult.
Oh
Like
my
there's a
God.
lot of
That is what we're going
life.
through. Yeah.
Yes, your house feels so
It
empty and
is
so quiet.
the
And
day that
another
I woke
dog,
up in this house and didn't hear Mia,
it's
didn't smell
even the
her.
little things. Like you just like I
Yeah.
while we were recording,
Hard.
you're just like hearing the little chomp, crunch, 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 crunch. Like what are you chewing
Yeah.
on? I don't know. Um, so we have had that experience, and then my sister and her boyfriend, their German Shepherd died almost
Oh.
2 years ago now, and they now have two German Shepherd rescues, and
Oh.
it's just been for them. It's been a catalyst to channel their grief, and like they still feel their original dog. I mean, he was 12, which for a German Shepherd is like crazy. They still like feel him and they still see things in him, and like the dogs that they have now never met him, but they've like manifested some of his habits and behaviors and like places in the house that he like loved, they love. So I think,
Wow.
yeah, it's just, again, I think Nicole said it so beautifully, but like everyone grieves differently, and the ways that we need to grieve, the universe will then provide you with that manifestation. So like for my sister and her boyfriend, I think they really needed more guardians in their house, and they got the two that like they were supposed to have. So it's so
Amazing.
crazy how it manifests depending on like what you need.
Speaking of the universe providing, the Cat Universe
Mm.
Agency has been working overtime, girl. So
It's chaos.
2 days before, like even a month before Mia's passing, like I
Mm.
found a kitten on my doorstep. We have these feral
Wow.
cats all over our house, and there's two that
Everywhere.
since Mia's passing has been sitting with me outside. Like they just come and they hang and they
Wow.
sit. They're really
They
cute. And
sense it.
they
They sense it.
do. And I mean, I sometimes feed them and I talk to them. I always like give them the like, the baby talk, and they love it. But
Yeah.
there's even, oh my God, when I had to pick Mia up from the hospital before her passing, um I had a litter of kittens born in our backyard. I
Oh
was
my God.
I was like, we're coming out of the car, going through
That's
the patio, and
insane.
I hear, I'm like, no. I lift up the chair cover of our
Oh my
patio chair,
God.
and there's six of them, and their mom like skedaddles, and I'm like, no, 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 come back. I can't do
Yeah.
this. I know. I'm like, this is too much. And eventually she came by and picked a majority of them up, but there's one that she didn't pick up, and she waited like an hour to pick him up, and a part of
Wow.
me almost wanted to go and grab that little kitten because it was so adorable. And I thought that the mom left it there on purpose. And
Crazy.
Mia was like scratching at the sliding door window. She's like, I want to go take care of it. I'm like, no, no, no.
Yeah.
And the reason why I can't have cats because my husband, and I'm like thinking animals or divorce. Okay.
Sure, sure.
I mean,
Be
like this
very
was like the
optimistic.
second or third time the Cat Universe Agency has sent many of its agents, and it's like,
Crazy.
maybe, I don't know. I think they were like, girl, you're gonna need these cats because something's gonna
Yeah.
happen. And yeah,
Yeah.
so
I mean, we're
but
in a similar boat because I cannot, I can, it depends. My allergies are pretty bad. We're in the same boat. We just have cats around us
mhm.
all the time. Even like, what's today? Today's Friday. On like Wednesday, I woke up and like opened my window, and there's just a cat sitting in our alleyway staring at me. I'm like, okay,
You're
like,
like,
what are you doing? Why are
no,
you
we're not doing
here?
this. No,
Yeah,
it's,
like, just,
it's not your,
mm.
not Sue Casa. No, no,
Yeah.
no. Mhm.
Yeah, and we've had one that's like leaving birds on our porch, which is them being like, "You're a bad hunter. Like, let me help you." I'm like, "Thank you. Please stop leaving birds on our porch. Like, what is happening?"
We figure you like
Chaos.
pheasants.
Yeah, they do. That's like they think you're a bad hunter, and
Watch, they're gonna
so
bring
they
you
like
like
are
a bunch
trying to
of
help you.
cups.
Oh, if there's a cup, I will lose my mind. No, thank you, thank you. I'm good. I'm tired of learning this lesson. Thank you.
Yes. But talking about it has been a really great source of processing
I'm sure.
my
Yeah.
grief and just in grief in general. And I mean, if it's anything that I want people to take away from this episode is
Mm.
that people are grieving with you. It's okay to reach out. It's okay to talk about
Yes.
it. You might run into that one asshole that's like, well, it's just an animal. That's not your friend. That is not your friend. Sorry,
You don't
when
need that kind
people,
of
you don't need
negativity.
that kind of negativity. That is not your friend. But you'll also hear, a couple podcast suggestions that I recommend people to listen to
Yes.
when they're going through this process, and so on and so forth. So, friends, you are not alone if you're going through
Yeah.
pet loss and pet
And
grief.
everyone's been so sweet. All the people that are messaging and sharing their story. I just think
Yeah,
all we have is like each other and the stories that we tell each other. And it's just been really
exactly.
beautiful. The people that have shared their stories with us and shared their grief with us. Like it's just really special.
It is.
We
It
have
is.
special listeners. I've always thought
Really
that. Like,
do. And I appreciate every single one of you guys
yeah.
who has literally reached out and messaged me and sent your condolences and sent your
Yeah.
experiences. It really has helped me out a lot. And
Aw.
I really do appreciate it. Mia does
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, Bryce, are we ready for this interview?
Yeah, I've already spoiled the whole thing. So,
Yes, you did. Well, guys, let's sit back and talk to Nicole Strickland, paranormal
Woo.
researcher, author, mother of cats, and even ghost kittens.
Yeah.
And let's hear her tales. And you're definitely going to hear some more tales because we have something about Mary. We're going to be touching on the Queen Mary ship because she has written a couple books on the Queen Mary. So yes, you get 2 for 2. All right, guys. So let's meet Nicole Strickland. Welcome back, guys, to Hollyweird Paranormal. You heard the intro. We have paranormal researcher, mother of cats, the cat ghost, dog ghost whisperer. We have Nicole Strickland here with us. And we are so excited to have her talk about so much on today's episode about her cats that have passed over and now are making constant visitations. And of course, pet loss and pet grief. And her book, The Afterlife Chronicles. And of course, we're going to end it with some Queen Mary information. Nicole also has several books out written about the Queen Mary. She also has a lot of experiences on that ship, and we are all here for it. Welcome to our podcast, Nicole.
Oh my gosh, guys. Thank you so much for having me tonight. It's such a delight to meet you.
Yes.
Love your podcast. Great work. So it really is an honor to be here. So thank you so much.
We're so excited to have you. Thank you.
We are.
Me
We're
too.
truly excited. So as everybody has heard, we had the passing of our mascot, Mia Marie Chavez. Our little 5-year-old boxer had passed away literally almost 10 days ago. It was unexpected. She had a lot of problems, a lot of complexities in her system, and she fought a good fight. And unfortunately, this really did her in. But as we were talking earlier, guys, I was on the phone doing a TikTok about the afterlife of pets and about this episode to promote on our Instagram, and something weird happened. I was just talking to Nicole and Bryce about this because I still have goosebumps. I'm still shaking about this. And many of you have even messaged me. Has Mia brought you any signs or has visited you? She has, but this one was the biggest. So as I was recording this TikTok, the question I asked before going into the video was, do our pets come back to visit us? And before I could even finish the rest of the question, I heard a loud knock on my left. Like it was on the left side of this table. It wasn't the house. It was on the table. And I think that was definitely a confirmation from Mia that she's like, hey, bitch, I'm here. So yes.
I don't know if she quite said that, but yeah, she said, I'm done. I'm kidding.
And I quote, direct quote.
Maybe she did. No, I'm kidding. That is so heartwarming. And, you know, first and foremost, my condolences. I know how hard it is.
Yeah.
I think saying goodbye to a beloved animal is perhaps one of the hardest, if not the hardest experiences we have to endure.
Really?
Sometimes harder than losing our human friends and family members.
Right.
Even. So
well, let's pick up and get into this. Nicole, pet loss and pet grief and the afterlife. Drop us some knowledge. You have a book, The Afterlife Chronicles, Nicole Strickland, and you also have had many experiences growing up as a child based on what I've read on in your book. You've had many visitations. You have the gift of sight, and it seems like your furry loved ones are definitely making communication with you to this very, very day. We have a couple of ghost stories that you're ready to share with us that our listeners are definitely ready to hear, especially for our cat lovers.
Yes. Oh my God. I am the cat lady. At one time I had 5 cats. Okay. One of my mom's coworkers had, I think, 12 at one time. So they're just, animals are so phenomenal. I've never not had an animal actually in my life. So I can't even imagine my life without one. The afterlife, you know, I will say that my cat specifically, I mean, because of the hour-long episode, I'm going to mainly focus with Max and Kayli, which were 2 littermate cats, a brother and sister, obviously, that I adopted after the 2003 wildfires. And I do believe it was interesting the day that I picked them up at the day that I was introduced to them. It was in a Petco, and the Petco wasn't actually the stop I was going to make, but something inside me said, stop here and just check. So I walk in the door and they're right in the center in their little, you know, temporary homes, sat these two kittens. They were about 3 months old at the time. And
Wow.
I was so drawn to them. And I believe they were drawn to me too. And at one point, and I renamed them, of course, Kayli and Max. And Kayli actually was sitting on top of Max and reached her paw out to me.
Oh
Wow.
my
And
God.
so the connection, it's so hard to put in words, but the connection was so strong immediately. And I do feel that the three of us belong to the same soul group. There's just a very, very deep connection. And don't get me wrong, I have loved all my animals, absolutely. But there was something, and is something, I should say, very, very special about the relationship that we have. And so to keep
Wow.
it kind of short, Max actually passed away in 2016 from cardiomyopathy. And so it was a very traumatic night, because it was, even though he was diagnosed, the doctor gave him a good prognosis, with medication, he can live for, another several years. So it was about 4 nights after his medication, and he started hyperventilating and crying on my bed. So my mom came and rushed him and me to the animal hospital. And so they took him back and they said, well, it could be a reaction to his beta blockers, or it could be heart failure. Well, of course, it turned out to be the latter, and it was heart failure. Now, something interesting happened that night, and this has to do with synchronicity. And it's actually rather beautiful. So while they were assessing him in the back, my mom and I sat out in the waiting room. And of course, they had overhead speakers and songs were playing. The song Endless Love started playing as the doctor came out. I could see the hallway from where I was sitting. As he came out of the door, I could tell by the look on his face that it wasn't good. He came to me and said, I am so sorry, but Max is in heart failure. And with that song Endless Love playing in the background, that was just one of the first of several synchronicities with Max. And so it was the following day that I had to honor his rite of passage, because he was hypoxic and everything. I believe that's the word. And he just losing his oxygen. And so it was hard. I had like a 45-minute consultation with the doctor. And so we collectively decided, yes, it's his time. And I had to honor that. And that's one of the most important and special things you can do for your animal, even though you don't want to hold on to them if it's going to hurt them or harm them. So I honored his rite of passage, went in there with him, and it was a very, very peaceful, utterly peaceful passing. And they wrapped him in a nice little blanket after and gave us some time in a quiet room to be with him. And I started having dream visitations with him shortly after as well, where he would appear to me. Even that night coming home, I heard him meow. Now, maybe that was me. Maybe it was some sort of projection because I was missing him so much. I don't know. But moving on to Kayli. Now, Kayli lasted for another 6 years after. So she was 18 and a half. Actually, no, 19 and a half. Nope, 18 and a half. Sorry. Years when she passed. And she had diabetes in the last 3 years of her life. Diabetes, hyperthyroidism, and they found a little nodule on her lung, which was a very slow growing cancer. What ended up taking her was a different form of cardiomyopathy that Max had.
Man.
So I was able, after she was in the hospital, to take her home for a few days and have these golden moments. And I told her, I said, Kayli, when it's your time, you let me know. I want you to let me know. And there was one morning, it was a Sunday, December 19th, 2021.
Wow.
When she came, and she had hardly any energy, but she got up, walked into my room, was able to jump on the bed, and she got into her little cat bed and looked at me just straight in the eyes. And I knew she was letting me know. So we made the arrangements to take her. And on the way over there, and I have an EVP that I can play after, and I'll share the story about it. But on the way over there, I had her in my lap, and the sun was shining against her back. My mom was driving, and her and I just kept looking at each other, just staring at each other the entire way there. So we get there, and one of her favorite veterinarians happened to be there and was with us during the transition. He was even crying. I mean, this is how special this little girl was, because she had made several trips over there with all of her disorders and stuff.
Sure.
And so very peaceful transition. Right after, it was just a series of synchronicities, light at the end of the hallway shining brighter than ever before that I could see. My mom and I went to In-N-Out Burger on the way home. We weren't even hungry, but we stopped there. And then on the way back from that, we turned a corner, and I just happened to look up at a billboard and it showed a finger, like the index finger touching a big bright orb of light. And I was like, wow, it was starting right then and there. Then came the series of dream visitations, and I've had about 16 of them since that time. And it was about 2 nights after her passing that she showed herself. I saw her on my desk. I was able to kneel down and feel her and pet her and talk to her. But these other types of dream visitations that I've had, and again, there have been about 16 of them, I can't really explain. I know they're dream visitations, but it's something interesting that happens. It's always in the same environment. So if you had a camera on me, I probably wouldn't be moving. But in this dream state, it's the same environment as when I went to sleep. I'm laying in my bed, the lights are off, and I feel her jump up on my bed.
Oh, wow.
I can hear her meow. She walks up on the bed. I'm moving my arms and I'm able to feel certain parts of her. Sometimes it's her tail. Other times it's her back. There have been times, in each dream's a little different, but there have been times where she cuddles next to me and lays next to me or sits on my chest. There was one dream where I was able to pick her up, hold her in my arms and talk to her. And it's as real as if I'm actually really awake and she's really alive in the physical. And so what I think may be going on is that maybe somehow she's able to spiritually come down to our level, but I'm slightly astrally projecting out of my body. And so we're meeting on that plane. I have never, ever experienced this with any other animal or a person before. And it's just so tremendously beautiful. And I'm wondering if other listeners have had this, but it's just so profound and so real. So they're not just dreams. These are dream visitations. That is really what helped me to heal. And I'll share this EVP, but I want to share the story about it. So I have a podcast, The Afterlife Chronicles, right now. It's on hiatus, but I decided to do a little in memoriam podcast or show for her in honor of Kayli 1 week after her passing. So I was in the middle of doing the show and I was bringing my mom on at the time when she was talking about how she drove us over there and how Kayli was in my lap and we were looking at each other. And then my mom pointed out in that segment that I said, oh, while we were on the way to taking Kayli home, I said taking Kayli home, I meant going to the hospital, but my mom brought that up because she said, you know what you said, Nicole? You said going home, which she really was. But there was a part in there where Kayli meows, which I did not hear live.
Wow.
And I verified at the time that our other cat absolutely was sleeping, was not awake during this time. And it's so localized to the microphone. I can play it if you guys want. I don't know how clear it's going to sound, but it repeats. It repeats like 3 times. And she had a kind of a high-pitched meow. It sounds like a meow, but it's not quite the same as her voice, which is common sometimes with EVP and
they're trying to come through. Yeah, they're
right.
trying to come through. So it's going to be a little tweaky in a way. It's not going to be as clear as day. It's very rare.
Exactly. So hopefully this will sound okay. And if not, I apologize.
So I know.
Okay,
Maybe
so here we go.
You can always forward it to us and we can always insert it.
I was just going to, I was just going to ask you to read each other's mind. Right? Okay. So here we go. Again, it repeats.
Let's see.
Sunlight was glistening on her back, keeping her warm. And at that point, I'm going to bring in my mom, Norma Strickland, because she wants to share what she observed on the car ride over there. And then we'll get to the actual transition. Mom, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Nicole. Do you know what you just said? You said on the way home. I
said on the way home. See that? On the way home. Now, why would I have said that? I meant on the way to the...
But she was going home, Nicole.
She was going home. See that?
Oh, I heard it.
She was going home, Nicole.
She was going home. See that? And then...
But she was going home, Nicole.
She was going home. See that? So you hear that little, and the last one I just stretched a little bit, but you hear that, wow, and it sounds electronic.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that live.
Yeah.
And so I was like, wow. And she used to sit up on the desk when I would do these shows.
Yep.
So yeah, these dream visitations are just so profound. And it is my hope that every animal lover can have this experience. It's actually taught me more about the afterlife. It's taught me, it's so inspirational.
Yeah.
100%. I know a lot of people have had experiences like this and have felt their animals, do things in the afterlife of what they used to do in while they were living.
Right.
There's actually an email message that I want to share with you. I was going to share this towards the end, but when I announced Mia's passing, we received this message, and it parallels with your story too. So it says, "Hi there. I really hope you see my message. I too lost my furry friend recently, and it's the worst pain I have ever experienced. I'm sorry for your loss, and I know how broken it leaves us since they aren't physically here with us anymore. I really wanted to share my experience and what made me believe even more in the afterlife. 3 months after my dog Canielo passed, I swear I could still feel his presence and his paws laying by my feet at night. I had a routine where I would call for him over our camera anytime we weren't home. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that he would always run to the room after I called his name out loud. I missed him so much and had a very hard time accepting that I would never see him again. So I thought what could hurt if I could try talking over the camera. Now that I saw the camera was on, I never expected it, but it definitely made me realize that even though he's gone physically, spiritually, he's still with me. I would really like to send you the videos very soon. Thank you again. Love, Canielo."
Wow. Wow. And that right there brings up a good point. And I know how hard, debilitating in a way, how hard it is to physically say goodbye to a loved one, whether it's a friend, a relative, a coworker. Of course, we're talking about animals, our beloved animals. But something happened to me, and I don't know if this parallels what this person wrote in their email. It's almost, I started to get this feeling of, okay, well, Kayli and Max aren't with me anymore, but I felt, this is going to sound so weird. It's going to sound cheesy, I know, because it's hard to explain, but it's like I felt them enter me. I felt them enter my soul and become such an interwoven part of my fabric that almost helps me to deal with the physical, missing them physically. Like they're always a part of me.
Oh yeah.
And it's a feeling, it's a visceral state that you get to in your stages of grieving. And once you get there, I mean, it's like, it's a peaceful feeling is what I'm trying to say.
That's the feeling I got when Mia died. It was 6 minutes before I got the call. I was going on a walk with my friend's dog. I was walking her dog while Mia was getting the blood transfusion because she had turned anemic. She had suffered GI bleeding, which is what did her in, and it was just too late. And she suffered an aneurysm. So literally, I think the moment that she passed, I felt, and I think you can confirm this too, Nicole, and anyone that's listening, I felt this utter warmth and peace for just this 1 minute or 2 minute. I can't even remember the time, but it was just like this moment of serenity and warmth and peace. And it's like the world and the atmosphere around me just silenced. And
yes.
Then I went into the house, and then a minute after I entered, I got the call from the hospital. And that's when the doctor said that she had passed, and we've been performing CPR on her for 6 minutes. And I said, and I was just so calm. Like my friend was witnessing me, converse on the speakerphone with this doctor. And I said, "Dr. Arnbell, it's done. She's done. Like, that's it. 6 minutes of CPR. She still hasn't she hasn't revived. No, she's done. I think it's time to let her go." And she understood. And she was like, "I'm so sorry." I'm like, "You did everything that you could." And I was very calm. I was like, super calm on the phone. And of course, when I hung up, my friend was like, "I would have lost it, but I don't know how you held it together." And I'm like, "I'm going to lose it right now." And I just blacked out.
Right.
So
Of course.
yeah, that's the moment. What you just explained validates now what I felt.
Right.
Literally.
And it's
Yeah.
you can't, it's hard to, I mean, you can explain it, but
Mhm.
you have to experience. It's one of those things that has to be experienced. It's not necessarily the explaining of it, it's the
Yeah.
experience of it.
Yeah.
I don't know, you know, I'm sure you have thoughts of this too. I honestly feel that you might have connected with her transitioning at that moment, and
Wow.
That's what it
maybe
felt like
connected
it
with the
was.
peace
I
that she
think-
was feeling.
Yeah, I think it was that she was transitioning because that was literally
Yes.
that was like the right at that moment I realized on the timestamp of the call. And
Mhm.
the moment that I felt that feeling, it was exactly those 6 minutes that they were, you know, trying to apply CPR. And I was like, oh my God, that must have been the moment she pieced out. And probably that is what I was feeling, was probably her and her
Totally.
transition. Yeah.
I have like goosebumps. I mean, it's almost like I almost like want to cry right now just because it's a beautiful moment. Even though it's so hard and difficult, that's a beautiful moment right there.
Yeah.
So
Let's talk more about the afterlife and kind of what people have perceived with the term the afterlife. People out there have different beliefs of what happens to our consciousness and our soul
Right.
after we pass. Some people don't believe that we'll come back to the world, but we're automatically reincarnated. What are your thoughts in terms of like what happens to that part of us that passes on? And
yeah, that's a good question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no!
Go
Oh
ahead.
yeah. Like I've always been the firm believer. And Bryce can chime in too. Like, is there this piece
Sorry,
of us, like this
really
piece of-
sorry to interrupt. Something so weird is like happening.
Oh my God, Nicole, what are you doing to us? What is
What are you
happening?
Nothing.
doing,
I am
Nicole?
sitting here talking with you
But
guys, having a good
remember,
time.
Bryce, remember you were even mentioning your house might have a little ghost itself.
Yeah,
What
it's not
happened?
my house, it's my dog. I don't know. He's just very like something's happening.
What is he
Sorry.
doing?
Bizarre.
Oh my!
Well, he like stares at me a lot anyway, but he's like sitting, you kind of tell me, you know how like the office is like diagonal to the living room. He is like on the corner of the couch, just like staring at me. Sorry,
Does
I'm
he
having
usually
like
do that?
Does he usually do that, Bryce?
kind of not like that. I don't know. Something weird
Oh
is
my
happening.
gosh.
But you've never, but Bryce, you've never reacted like this, nor has
Yeah.
Finn ever done something like this during an interview.
That's so bizarre. I mean, maybe
Nicole, what
there's
are
like
you doing?
I don't know.
Oh.
Nothing.
Yeah, sorry.
I
It's
don't-
just that he
No,
like
that's so.
because you know he's quite small, so he like
He's tiny.
popped up on the couch, but he's just like sitting on the like corner back edge, and he's just like staring at me.
I'm wondering if Mia is present.
I don't know, has she been here? I don't remember.
He's never
Once,
been here,
maybe.
but she remembers you, Bryce. She always loved
Oh
you.
yeah, that's
She always
different.
remembers
I
how
don't
she
know.
tried to jump on you.
Yeah, I know. Every time we would record, I would always like come away and be like, "Why am I so
Like,
wet?"
meow,
Like,
meow,
oh.
meow, meow, meow,
Yeah,
meow.
just the timing is very interesting. Like when we were talking, he's just so like intense. And in fairness, yes, he actually does. My ex-boyfriend used to say that he was my like page of swords because he would pull
Oh.
the tarot and he would always like it would always come up. And
my
I have
gosh.
always felt like I'll be doing stuff and I'll like look and he'll just be staring at me. So that is not what's unusual. It's just the timing is like
The timing of it. See, there's
Yeah.
that synchronicity again we were talking
anyway,
about.
sorry.
No, but
I'm
I
Not
will
at all.
focused.
Oh my
I
gosh.
will justify this, guys. Like Bryce has never stopped an interview like this based on something
Yeah.
that Finn is
I'm
doing. Finn is
deeply
always chilling.
professional. A
This
consummate
is so
journalist.
I love this right now because
I know with what happened with me earlier.
energy
and-
is
yeah.
so gosh.
Yeah,
The energy is just in sync.
Hmm.
and I tell you this too, Nicole. I mean, we even talked about this too. Like, I am not a believer of coincidences anymore, but synchronicity.
I'm not either.
And it was
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
crazy because out of the blue one night while mourning Mia, I came across I think it's called the Rainbow Connection. The
the Bridge podcast.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm looking for it, guys. So I'm going to plug this in. If you are suffering with pet grief or pet loss, there are
Mhm.
several podcasts out there. And the one that I found Nicole on was a really beautiful one. It's called the Rainbow Bridge Connection Pet Loss Support Podcast. It's hosted by
that
Kayli.
was a really
It's a really good one. That's how I actually found Nicole. And it just so happened to be the first episode that I played. I just like pressed any episode and it was Nicole. And then
there you go. There's that synchronicity again,
Yeah,
right?
and
As
then-
you need it.
yeah, it
because
was
of me.
crazy.
Yeah.
And that episode helped me go to sleep that night. And I remember the next
Oh
day,
my gosh.
Bryce can tell you,
Mhm.
like, I messaged him, like, we're going to have this girl come
Yeah.
on. I'm going to message her.
Yeah,
What do
I
you
was like,
feel?
this is happening.
What do you feel
I
about
got your
doing-
message.
What
I
do you
was like,
feel about
yes, and
doing
you
an
were so
episode?
fun.
Yeah, because I was like, I don't know if I want to record. I'm in grieving, but I'm like, no, I feel like we
Yeah.
need to do this. Like, this is not only for
Talking about it helps.
yeah, it does.
Talking
And
about it helps. Kayla's wonderful. And I remember, I think there were some spots in that podcast where I was cutting out. I think I was having Wi-Fi issues, but she said
remember.
it didn't really affect it too much.
no,
But yeah, no, she's wonderful. Her podcast is great.
but I think something was happening during that recording with you too.
Who
Like,
knows? I mean, gosh, it's so nutty, but
I mean, there
Go
is
ahead.
a thing of synchronicities, and I mean,
mhm.
let's chat a little more about the afterlife. Like, what do you believe happens to our consciousness or our
Yeah.
souls after we pass? And not just us, but also our pets. Where do you think we reside afterwards?
Yeah, this is a really good question.
Mm.
Yeah, like you said, there's all kinds of different beliefs about it. You know, it's interesting how different cultures may have slightly different beliefs in what should be done to the
Mhm.
body after, where we go, or what that's called. But there's this universal interest and intrigue in what happens to us when we die. Where do we go? And this almost universal belief in, well, okay, well, it seems as though we do not go to nothingness, that something else happens and we live on. So based on my experiences throughout my life being a paranormal investigator, even before that, I should have backed up, because you know the term old soul. I can't even tell you how many people have told me, oh, you're an old soul, blah, blah, blah. And I think I believe it and I feel it. So I almost feel like, okay, maybe this isn't my first rodeo. I know that sounds weird, but there's just such an interest there in studying the afterlife. But I do believe that while our physical bodies go, our energy goes somewhere and disperses out into the universe. I do believe that our souls evolve after we physically die. They go through the ranks of spirithood, you know, soul maturity, all of that. So I do believe in that. And just in talking to people and hearing their stories, and just with my own encounters with deceased loved ones, not just my animals, but family and friends that have passed on, it's not a concrete field. You know, it's not like when you deposit a check in the bank, you get that check confirmation. Okay, your check has been deposited. We don't have that per se. So there's that gray area. But I think there's enough there's enough encounters from around the world and people's stories and all of that. And a lot of these scientists and these researchers researching what happens to consciousness when we pass on, NDEs, for example, near-death experiences.
Yes.
There's enough there to suggest, okay, we do live on. Where that is, some call it heaven, some call it enlightenment, some may call it prana, but we do go on. And what's interesting about near-death experiences from across the world here, there have been many studies on it, but people from different ages, different backgrounds, different ethnicities and cultures, they all describe similar traits of an NDE. So a life in review, going to a type of terrain or type of environment with vivid colors, more so than what we see on Earth, landscapes that they can shape or match according to their culture, altruism, like a loss of material greed, just a peace, an all loving sense that they don't want to return back to the physical. These are traits that are just for years have been described. So there's something there. And there have been many studies, but for example, Dr. Samparnia of New York University's Langone Medical Center, he conducted one of the largest studies there of NDEs, and he talks about how the brain upon physical death doesn't automatically just shut down. It goes through this process of decay, which allows them to study the intricacies of the brain and all of that. So there's even spikes in the EEGs when people have passed on, where it shows that maybe that's could be a little sign of maybe consciousness actually existing after death. It's just so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating.
Yes, you're right. I mean, there have been studies out there, especially beliefs in different cultures. I know like Buddhism has their own like philosophy and learning
Yeah.
of, you know, what happens when we pass on, especially I can't remember the name of the book. Oh my God, it's on the tip of my tongue. I think it's like the Book of Life or Death, or the Book of Death. It's like a Buddhist book that talks about what happens after we pass on. And
exactly.
I mean, I've heard this book in passing many times, which is something that I've always been recommended to read too. But yes, the study of NDEs, that is also a very fascinating study. And if anyone can research articles at their local night library about near-death experiences, you'd be pretty surprised what you come across, especially with the human mind. Like the biggest mysteries for me is the ocean, space, and our bodies, our mind.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So we've talked about it too, like how like our minds can be so powerful that they could create so much chaos. Like when people talk to me about poltergeist, they're like, well, is it a ghost? I'm like, no, it's us. It is us that
see that. Yeah.
That phenomenon.
And the whole thing of exactly. You bring up a good point too. Tulpas too.
Yeah, girl. Yes. Tulpas.
That should be a classification right there, you know? Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion, but
exactly.
you bring up a good point on that.
And the Philip experiment, people familiar with the Philip experiment. And then after that in the 90s came the Skippy experiment, which was a follow-up to it, but it does prove that we can create a ghost with the power of our minds. And not a lot of people know this too, but the Philip experiment was actually 10 years of this group meeting time and time again, creating this ghost of Philip that actually they manifested with their thoughts. So crazy.
It is crazy. And it's one of those things too, where especially in the last 20 years, you have these locations that have been investigated day in and day out by different groups all year long. So then then it breaks off into two categories: what I call authentic paranormal phenomena, or activity that exists independent of what any humans may inadvertently cause or influence, right? It just exists by itself. And then you have the whole batch or percentage of what all these groups have caused by coming in. And so you have to sift through that, and it makes it much more difficult.
That is, yes, I'm getting goosebumps right now. Now, I guess we could slowly segue into this too. For those who are wondering, well, how come my animal hasn't made communication with me? Or how can I try to communicate with my animal? What do you recommend for those individuals to do to make that communication or to open up to a visitation?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I mean, my advice is just to be open to it, because I'm going to go back to that principle of everyone has the ability to channel and be psychic and communicate with spirits. Everyone has that ability. Just some people are maybe not as aware, or maybe consciously or even consciously try to shut that down. So I would just, and then also what comes into play too is, if you believe that your animal, even though he or she is physically gone, is still has life and is still present, that's going to help too. So just it's an intention thing. So set out the intention that you want to communicate with your animal. You want to have some sort of experience. You want to know that they're there. Put that intention out, and then allow the experiences to flow as they naturally will. That's just what I would suggest. With Kayli, I never would have envisioned the dream visitations that I had. They just happened. So, and then with grieving too, the grief is so hard, and everyone goes through the stages of grief in different ways.
Yeah.
But I know another thing that helped me were social, or not social group. Well, social groups. I can't believe when I said that. Support groups is what I was trying to say. So
Yes.
those really help too. And talking to people like we're doing right now and talking about it and having that camaraderie there really helps. Another thing I did too after, and I'm getting kind of in the grief here. Sorry about that. But another thing I did too after Max and Kayli passed is I went out to the nursery and I got a nice plant, a succulent, and I planted it. You know, little things like that. Urns. Now I know some people may not want to do this, but I have their urns. It's not a shrine or anything, but I have their urns in a on a shelf somewhere, and I have like their pictures by it and all of that. So little things that you can do, but talking to people, support groups can really, really be helpful, and just live their legacy.
Yes.
You know, what did they do for you while they were here? You know, what are the things that they taught you, and live out their legacy that way. So
that is true. Yes, that's what I'm planning to do with Mia. She has gone through the process. Well, she's currently going through the process of aquamation. And I don't know if you have. Yeah. So I mean, the hospital was wonderful. I mean, they immediately put me, they had some representatives contact me like, you know, what do you want to do with her remains? Do you want to come and see them? And I said, no, because that's her shell. That is just her shell. And in my belief, like her soul is in transition right now, are ready to see me, or ready to see her dad. And they were like, well, she's going to be transferred to this location here in Los Angeles. It's called Hearts and Halos. And the gentleman that runs it, I believe it's, I think Kayla on her podcast interviewed him, but he started this small little business called Hearts and Halos in Redondo Beach. And it was because of the mass demand of COVID casualties. So because he's in the funeral industry, he did cremations. He felt that the cremations were very aggressive and also environmentally harmful. So there is a process. I don't know if you guys are familiar with aquamation.
I actually, to be honest with you, never heard of it. Part of that now.
I know, me neither. And I had to, they sent me the video and everything. So aquamation actually is the breakdown of the body's muscles and other, you know, parts. And what they do is they place the body in this like large container, and they fill it up with water and alkaline. And I think it's like a certain percentage of lye, and they wait for it to, for the body to deteriorate to bone.
Okay.
And then they take the bone and they compound it, and those are the remains. It's environmentally friendly. It's less aggressive, and you get 15 to 20%. Yeah, you get 15 to 20%. It's not ashes, but it's like a powder. It's their bones. And
right.
Yeah. So it worked out for me because, you know, my husband and I always talked about, like, even before Mia passed, we're like, you know, if she passes, I want to disperse some of her remains at a beach, because she loved, it's so weird. She loved, hated the water.
Sure. Same.
Right.
Yes. She loved to see, like, she hated the water. Oh my God. It was funny to put her in the water. She's like, no, we're not doing this. And and that is something that before her passing, we went to Santa Barbara, went to the beaches there, and she had this like look of serenity and peace and everything. And I think that's where we're gonna do. Yeah. So
that's so special.
It's really, really special.
How long does that process take usually?
It takes 2 weeks. Yeah. And I know that they do it for humans as well. And I think it ranges around the same price as a cremation almost, but it does take a little longer, but it's less aggressive on the body. And it's a gentler process, and you get more of them sent back to you, which is really, really beautiful. And the way they handle it and the way that they did the transaction with me, it was very positive. And
that's so good.
And the reality of it is, when your pet passes, is like, sometimes these vets, they charge like $1,500. And to be honest and open, like, this whole process cost me $356 for Mia. But I up the ante on,
is
like,
amazing.
I was like, no, she's not going to be put in that, you know, that generic box. No. And we were like, no, she's going to be getting the cedar box with this glass on it. And this, her name's got to be spelled this way. I got a necklace to put her remains in so she can travel with us. Yeah, that was another
I was looking at those. Yeah, the beach is great too.
Yeah.
Kind of putting her ashes back somewhere in a place that she loved, I think is
Mhm.
really, really spiritual, really beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah, Kayli's urn. Now Max, because he's a man, I just did the cedar box and whatever. But Kayli, I got this beautiful brass and it has mother of pearl, which kind of brings in the Queen Mary a little bit because of the mother of pearl quartzite in the former first and third class pool. So yeah, it's really pretty.
Another thing I also wanted to bring up too is this the notion of like the pet loss and pet grief, how for some people like they feel like they're not validated, that they're supposed to go to get over it and just move forward because it was just an animal. Like, what are your thoughts on it too, Nicole? And also definitely your thoughts on it too, Bryce, because I remembered like we talked about this too when a dog passes or any animal passes. Like for some of us, we immediately want to fill that void and not go through the motions of that grieving process. But we feel like that grieving process is not validated, especially in our society.
Yeah, this is a good topic and everyone's so different. I think those that are, I'm trying to say this in a way that I'm not like misunderstood, but those that are just really, really like genuine animal lovers, they go through that grieving process. And it's like, it's one of those situations where I'm not sure if we ever get over it or through, we just learn to cope with the new normal. But I know for me, I can't just go out and get another animal. I've already had like 5 or 6 people ask me, so when are you getting another cat? I have my 22-year-old cat, that's been with me since college, but when are you getting another cat? And it's like, that may work for some people. We're all different. But I know for me, I need to process and get through. And in a way, I leave it up to Max and Kayli. Let me know when it's time, and who knows? They can reincarnate perhaps into another animal and you end up getting with that animal. I've heard stories of that before. Wow. So everyone's different with the whole grieving process, I think, with that. But yeah, it's this, I kind of get what you're saying too. Like in society, it's like, well, you're not supposed to grieve an animal. And I'm not saying that this is general, but some people might believe, oh, well, you're not supposed to grieve an animal like you are a human. No, not true at all. And that's, if that love is there and you have your animal as part of your family, then it's going to be just as difficult, if not more. So that's a good point.
I think we're in a moment as a society in general where we are deconstructing the hierarchies of love and the ways that in the past, it's a very traditional method of like the hierarchy is like spousal, familial, nuclear family. Like that is the penultimate goal for everybody. And then you would argue like religion maybe is the only thing that supersedes that. And I think we're in an era as people start exploring what friendship love looks like and what polyamory looks like and all these things that are sort of gradations that deviate from like the traditional views on love. And I think we're at a place where people are understanding. Like I personally, not to tangent this entire thing, but it's like for me, having children is just like not interested in that. That is not a path that like I want to pursue.
That was me too.
But with my friend's kid, I feel so connected and so protective, and all the things that you hear people say, like, well, this is like how you'll feel if it's your kid. And like, that is, we're coming into an era of like, right, we are tribal creatures at our core. And like being a part of his little tribe is fulfillment. That is love. To your point, Nicole, of like,
absolutely.
The love that you feel is not to be parsed and like rated as like which is more important. It's all just an outflow from you. Like that, it's all love. So I hate, because I think you're so right. Like
that is
like,
so well said. My goodness.
Like why would we parse like the love that you feel for an animal, the love that you feel for a human, the love that you feel for all the different relationships that we have in this life? So I just think we are now starting to change the dialogue around what, because I remember, Tammy, we've talked about this, like when our dog growing up died, you don't realize as a kid that it really is your parents' dog. in many ways. Like, you're at school all day. Like, what do you don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And it's a different kind of grief. And then you get, as you become an adult, you're like, oh, like I felt my heart grow when I adopted my dog, like the Grinch, full on, just like, oh, it like hurt my chest. Like, oh my God, like this is, and we had a very similar experience. Like my friend who went with me to adopt him, she like more or less stole him from a child's hands. So like whatever. But there was like like a bunch of kids holding him, but they like weren't adopting, and we like saw him across the room, and she like beelined it, and it was like it was the one.
It's meant to be, right?
Yeah.
It's just
that is that's exactly how it was with Mia. Like she had a 5-day hold because she had a collar, no tag, and a chip but no address. And I was agonizing because I'm like, other people,
oh my gosh,
reviewing her, and I was like, no, this is my dog. Like no one's gonna love her and take care of her. I know I would do the best job I would. And she already had a lot of issues too to begin with, which were like I'm assuming were the precursors to what she was going through as she was developing. But I just felt that. I was like, no, this is my dog. Like I even told my husband, who was like kind of adamant at first. He was like, I don't know, but if you want her, I'm all for it. And what are the odds of finding a boxer at a shelter? And
there you go.
And there she was. And she was the sweetest one, the quietest one out of an aisle of barking dogs. Like there she was. And she was just like ready to be like ready to go.
I wonder if they choose us on the way too. I forgot to mention when I went to view Max and Kayli, and their names I believe were Joey and Beauty, and so I, of course, renamed them Max and Kayli.
My dog's name was Joey.
Oh, how funny!
So weird. Yeah.
I had a bird named Joey too. I was like, cockatiel.
He's not a Joey. This is not gonna work.
Exactly. But there was another application on them, and so again, this was right after the 2003 San Diego wildfires, and so there was another application on them. So I applied, blah blah blah, and maybe about 4 or 5 days went by, and so I cleaned my entire apartment like really well, disinfecting the floors, just in anticipation that they chose me. So I call, and it was through the rescue house here in San Diego, and I call and I'm like, this is Nicole. I'm just checking up on the application, and I said, I know there's another applicant out there, but I just, I disinfected my apartment floors just in case. And they were like, so like happy about that. And they're like, you know what? You are the right owner. They're yours. And I their cat, the other applicant's cat did pass in the fire. So I don't know if that influenced them, but you know what? It was just meant to be.
Yeah.
What's meant to be is meant to be. You can't, it's going to happen.
Yes.
Exactly.
Truly that.
I 100% believe in that.
It's just funny how it works.
Have you ever investigated locations of places that have had animal ghosts? Like people have seen a black cat roaming around the location or dog. So that like also is a testament that, they still linger around.
They do. They totally do. Absolutely.
And there's one place, you're based out of San Diego, right?
Yes.
The Whaley House does have a couple of animal ghosts. I don't know if you're familiar with their apparitions and their furry apparitions, but apparently there is a ghost of a dog and a ghost of
Dolly, I believe. Dolly the dog.
Yes.
People will feel her come up. They'll hear her bark. They'll hear her little clickety-clack nails. There are people that'll say, oh, I felt something lick my ankle or lick my shoe or lick my foot. It's supposed to be her. So Rancho, Buena Vista, Adobe is another place where I've done tours there. Right now, because of the pandemic, they're still kind of on hiatus. But there's phantom horses in there.
Amazing.
That we've heard. I mean, it's just crazy.
We
haven't really talked about it, but I think the other side of this coin is that with many animals, but especially like cats and horses, like these are animals that on this side are also in many ways 1 foot or perceiving other realms, people, energies, whatever you actually want to label it as. That's fine. I'm not here to label it, but there's so many animals that are tuned into something else that's happening. Whether that's like animal instinct, but it's such a strange, like we've been talking about like bridges and meeting halfway, and you astral project and the cat, like that is what we experience before as well, like especially I think with cats, like they're so in tune to something, whatever that, and like horses, the same thing. So it's like, then when on the flip side we're experiencing them posthumously, it's like, well, that's, yes, they're not physically with us, but that's really not that much different than what they were experiencing prior.
That is
Very
very
intense.
true. That's very, very true. And I, with animals, I'm wondering if it's just because they lack that distracting ego that we humans have, and they're just more in touch with the divine, I think, than we are at times. And maybe that allows them to be able to feel and connect with the metaphysical a little bit more.
And they're not self-censoring, they're not self-doubting, like those things don't exist for them.
Exactly.
Well, they're like children, like I mean, we've heard stories of children that could see, the ghost of Nana. Oh, like Nana's here. Nana died 5 years ago. What? So I feel like even with Mia, I took her to an investigation at the Glen Tavern Inn, and there was one point where she heard something outside of our room at 2:30 in the morning, and it sounded like kids. And I was like, Mia, what do you hear? She's like, let's go outside and investigate. And she ran for some reason out of the blue. One moment she ran to the lobby and she was looking for something. And I was like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for food? Like, are you that hungry? She was always hungry. But I was like, let's go. I'm tired. There's nothing here. We tried to do sessions, nothing. And I was like, I thought she was behind me, and I turned around and she was sitting at the foot of the staircase, and she was looking at the banister, like looking up. And I'm like, oh God, no, Mia. Like, no. And I have to find the picture, but I took a picture and you can see this. I don't know how to explain it. It's like an anomaly. It was like this like little cloud of light. I can't explain it. And she's looking at it. And I'm like, no, we're going upstairs to the room. So we're not doing this.
Isn't that one of the claims though? Aren't there kids spotted in the hallways?
Yep. Yeah, like Tavern? Especially there's the woman in white, the kids in the second level, and sometimes there's the bottom level too. They're everywhere. But I heard kids at one point when we were in the room, and I'm like, no, they can't be running around. It's 2:30 in the morning, and there was a family staying there, but no one was awake. Like it was very
you'd be able to tell. You'd hear them and stuff.
Yeah, most definitely.
Wow.
But moving forward, we have 15 more minutes. I'm sure a lot of us are wondering, Nicole, let's talk about a little gal named Mary. There's something about Mary. Little gal
came for a little. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, truly not.
Oh my gosh, in 15 minutes.
In 15 minutes, you wrote a couple of books on the Grand Dame Queen Mary.
Oh my gosh. Okay. You know what? I'm going to try to condense this because of time, but
it's okay. We got to go over. They're like, we must hear everything because I know our listeners are obsessed with the ship. And to tell you guys the truth, like we haven't covered it because it's been so
overly.
Yeah.
And every show that I go on, they're always asking me, and I love talking about the ship. I love it. I do, but I know what you mean. It is. So let me share the introduction that I had to the Queen Mary. Okay. So this occurred in the year 2000. So I was a junior in college, and we came back out here to SoCal for spring break. So my friend's parents stayed in Huntington Beach. So we were there. She drove us to the Carnival Cruise Port, which is right adjacent to where the Queen Mary's docked right now in Long Beach. And so my first introduction to the ship was from the backseat of a car. And I just remember looking at the Queen Mary in total awe. Even boarding the Carnival, I was watching it as we were sailing away until I couldn't see her anymore. And I made a mental note. I said, I will be back there someday. So that day came in 2005.
Wow.
Parked my car, took the elevator, walked up the gangway on A deck, which is where the hotel lobby check-in area is. A is one of the hotel decks, M, A, and B. And this is, again, very hard to explain in words. But the second I stepped foot aboard the ship, I felt at home. I felt very familiar. I felt like I had been there before. The surroundings were extremely familiar. Wow. And so a lot of people, I've had past life regressionists contact me, and others saying, you have a past life aboard. you were maybe a nurse, you were this or that, whatever the case is, there's just this connection that I had with the Queen Mary. And in all these years, because I don't just research the paranormal, I research the history as well, because those two go hand in hand.
Yes.
It would be a disservice to the ship to not honor its history, right?
Exactly.
So that's what I do. And it's my second home, and it's such a love. But I learned throughout the years that this same draw other people had, former Commodores, captains, crew members, World War II servicemen, war brides. There's a core group of us now that are very good friends, and we meet on the ship frequently, sometimes during events and things like that. But they too have this draw. And I remember Captain John Treasure Jones, when he brought the Queen Mary in to Long Beach on December 9th, 1967. So she was retiring in Long Beach after her 1001st voyage, right?
Wow.
He said something to the effect of, the Queen Mary is as closest to a human being of any ship I've ever commanded. So that leads me to my next spot, or my next point. And this may sound funny to some people. Some people may think I'm nuts. That's fine. After all the hours and days and nights I've spent on board, I do believe in my heart that the Queen Mary is sentient. I think that the ship is very much alive, has thought, has feeling, and she connects with everyone, because one of her claims to fame was bridging the old world with the new and bringing people together. She's done that since her inception. But she really connects with those that can really tap into her soul. And I think in terms of paranormal activity, there's this super connection between the ship as one gigantic spirit and the resident energies and those that come through. And so there's this interplay between that. And I think that's what makes the Queen Mary so special in terms of a lot of her spiritual energy, but just a phenomenal historical tapestry. And it saddens me, the people that go on board that want to, let's say, investigate the paranormal, and all they care about is the paranormal, and they don't even want to learn about what this ship did for humanity. And that saddens me. So I'm attracted to the ship. Okay, yes, I'm a paranormal investigator. Don't get me wrong. I've investigated many times, but that's not like the reason why I love the Queen Mary. I love the Queen Mary for who she is and what she stands for. So there's that deep connection there. So
yeah, I agree.
But I've had many encounters on board. It's crazy.
Oh, yes.
But I think so often we talk about like whether a space is fully sentient or partially, or if it's just energy that's manifesting there. There's so many different versions of that sentiment. And yet we talk about this all the time, and you see, not to like name names or call anyone out, but you see these people and they go in and they're like kicking doors in and they're screaming and they're like, possess me, and like throwing me.
Yep.
And that, look, again, that there is a path for everyone. And if that works for them, great. But when you think about respect for a space, that space will then return that respect to you. And so if you are there, not that it can, I'm not saying like, well, it's withholding if you're not respectful and it's forthcoming if you are, but it just makes so much more sense in my head. Like, right, enter a space with the respect of the history that has happened.
Exactly.
Because that's like the bare minimum that you can do. It just drives me insane.
Oh,
like,
I'm with you on that. It is a
crazy.
thorn in my side. And we talked earlier about too, the whole like psychokinetic creation and us creating.
Yeah.
There may be a little bit of that going on with the Queen Mary and a lot of these other places that are just investigated all the time. Right. So, but beside that, there's just a lot of very authentic energy going on the Queen Mary. And again, I think it's just what helps that is it's like the ship is one big giant capacitor, and then you have these resident human energies, even those that might come through and pass through. It's just a really special place. But yeah, I'm with you on that. It just baffles me and just annoys me when people just go in and just don't want to learn about the history and what that place or ship or whatnot accomplished, and the respect and reverence. I sometimes feel like I preach about it, not preaching, I don't preach, but that I talk about it and highlight it too much, because it just drives me nuts. It drives me
especially
nuts.
with a place like that where it is old. Like
Yes.
there are locations that are no longer accessible because people have
Mhm.
been disrespectful. Like you can't even walk on certain portions anymore. So it's like
Yes.
as it becomes more fragile, it only becomes more important to have these
Right.
conversations
Oh,
about respect
absolutely.
in the space. And
Well, we
I don't
can't have
know, it
nice
just,
things. We can
we can't
never
have
have
nice
nice
things.
things. I
So
know.
crazy.
So I did
Yeah.
a paranormal walkthrough of the Queen Mary 2
Mm.
months ago, and they took me to room B340, and I have thoughts on B340. I
Yep.
actually many thoughts. And
So do I.
we always if you know the
Yeah.
truth about room B340, then we're friends. All right. And Nicole already
Mhm.
knows that we're already friends. All right.
Yep, I know.
And if you really do your research and look into what Disney turned it into many years ago and what it
Exactly.
actually inspired, what real room it inspired this story to happen, then you'll understand. But because of the influence, because of these social media stars and these YouTubers coming in, they've made a mockery, in my opinion, of this room, and they've really exacerbated the space. But at the same time, like I guess the company is like actually promoting it as haunted, and now they have a Ouija board and a crystal ball, so they're just like kind of like motioning you to do these things that you shouldn't be doing. And now they can't rent out the room for several months because they're trying to renovate it, but at the same time people keep on stealing things from the room. So now they stole, they stole some things inside of the room, from what the gentleman told me, because he gave us a tour inside the room, which was really interesting. And second, they keep on stealing the room number outside. So no one ever find it. Yeah. So it's like when I say we can't have nice things, especially in the paranormal world, we can't have nice things because people want to go in and mess things up.
One can ruin it for everyone. I know of stories I've been told that people steal artifacts, like someone I guess walked out with one of those old original fans. I don't remember what room that was. It's just the lack of respect, and it's obviously that person doesn't get it. I can be on board and pretty much be like, okay, that person kind of gets it, that is oblivious, they just treat it like a venue, and it's so much more than that.
Yes, they treat it like
so
a
much
venue.
more than that.
Yes.
I mean, we have to remember people died on board the Queen Mary. People lived out luxury and opulence on the Queen Mary, all the way to those that were scared to death sailing on board during World War II. So it's seen all these levels of emotion throughout the years, not to mention that it lessened, along with other ships, lessened World War II by at least 2 years, saved many men, women, and children. It's done so much for humanity, and people don't realize that. And another thing too that cracks me up, this ship is nearing 100, right? Okay, right. So she was built and launched in 1934, right? So people will complain about every little crack. Oh, the glass is broken here. Would you go up to an elderly woman and expect her to be in just absolute perfect condition? No. So it's the same thing. It just drives me nuts. But
I know
I don't want to be pessimistic. But
do you find when you are on the ship and you're sort of around people that you're experiencing that, does that interfere with the feeling that you are experiencing, or are you able to like separate it? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, no, I'm able to separate it. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm able to separate that totally when I'm on board. But it's just a phenomenal place. And it's a war bride, one of our really good friends, June Allen. She was among the first wave of war brides that sailed on the Queen Mary. She puts it like this. She said, the Queen Mary chooses you. She chooses those that can, and I know that may sound weird to those that don't get it or whatever, but if you've ever been to a place that you've been drawn to, you might understand it. And so that the Queen Mary is that place for me and many others. So yeah.
Agreed. I really believe that she definitely has an energy, and she has a presence, and she definitely leaves an imprint on a lot of people. There's a lot of people that feel just like you, Nicole. They're like, I have to come here like once a week. Or I gotta like visit her like once a month, because they feel like this very like weird connection to her, which is very, very
Yes.
interesting. And
It's interesting, and it's not, don't feel weirded out about it. It's actually, if you can feel that, that's, to me, that's a beautiful thing. So
do you believe in vortexes? Because a lot of people believe that there's like several vortexes on the ship.
I actually think the entire ship is a portal in one way or another, just
I always
because
thought
it's
too.
like, it's a bridge. It's just for some reason, it's a bridge. One of my friends put it as, he said, he thinks the Queen Mary is like the eighth wonder of the world. There's just something there, and I don't know if we're supposed to understand it completely as mortals, but it's there, and it's just something that's very fascinating. So,
well, and the thing is,
I'd love to go aboard with you
Oh,
guys
God,
one
yeah.
time.
Oh my God, we will
We should
love
totally
that.
do that.
I know our
Right?
listeners would love to see Bryce.
I'm very brave. How dare you?
Well, we might be able to. I think we would love to do an overnight. So, I mean, we have that. We have our Patreon supporters, donating, and I think that we could definitely put some money into the pile.
Yeah.
So
To get a
cute.
night, so we
Totally.
can spend the night there, Bryce.
I will bring a blankie. It's fine.
Yeah, we could maybe rent out one of the suites. Even
Are
that
there
would be
any?
really
How
cool.
about this? Are there any animal ghosts that have been seen on the Queen Mary?
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. Yeah, they had dogs and cats that sailed on board. There's actually, and I have had many experiences down in the former first and third class pool in the women's changing room area
No
of
way.
cats, hearing cats. There was one time I was a guest on a paranormal investigation tour, and we were all in the women's changing room area, and this one gal said, "Oh, something just touched my ankle." And so then I saw something come out of that stall, walk. It stopped and meowed right in front of all of us, and it was actually captured on recorder. It walked out of the entrance to the changing rooms, and then we all saw it walk back in. It was shadowy form, but you could make out the tail,
Sure.
the four legs, and so yeah, that's the ghost cats in that area are common.
Whoa, that is so crazy. I didn't realize
And
how
that-
many animal ghosts there were, but that is true that we had, furry friends travel aboard this ship, even birds and reptilians and stuff that were, part of like their guests, that entered this ship. And
Absolutely.
I also want to
Yeah.
know to pick your brain a little bit. We have a couple more minutes. What is your thoughts on Jackie?
Okay. Yeah. Jackie. Okay. So
Jackie.
there,
What is your thoughts?
Jackie. Oh gosh, so to my knowledge, based on the research I have and others have done, there's no forensic evidence to suggest that a girl passed in either the former first and third class pool or the second class pool.
Thank you.
Peter James, God bless him, was the late resident psychic in the 90s. He apparently coined Jackie and felt, in his opinion, that she passed in the second class pool. That may be. I'm not so sure. I've had my own theories. Maybe she comes from the Titanic. Maybe somehow she did pass away. Maybe I have different theories, and I kind of have a far out theory about her. I do think she's real. I really do. Is there a made up psychokinetic, like hologram version of her from the scores of people going in? Maybe there's something there with that, but I do believe she's real. And I almost feel that in some way or another that she's like the personification of the ship itself. So you have like the femininity, you have the young innocence and all of that. I'm not saying that Jackie is the personification of the ship's spirit. No, but I just think for some reason, in my opinion and in my experience, other energies that are resident energies on board seem to know who she is. So she might have some sort of like ambassador or spokesperson role. But she's commonly seen in that pool area. But I've seen her elsewhere. I've heard her elsewhere. Young girl, I've seen her. And if you picture Shirley Temple, that's kind of what she looks like. Just, I think she's very advanced spiritually. In my opinion, just, and this is just my opinion. I could be totally wrong.
No, go for it. I want to hear it.
I vacillated. I'm like, gosh, is she real or is she made up after all these years? And it's like, I do think there's a real her on board, but there might be some psychokinetic stuff going on as well, separate from the
Agreed.
real version.
I'm in that same
I don't
boat.
know.
No pun intended. I'm in that same boat with you. Yeah, with
Yeah, I was
that.
going to ask what your thoughts are on that, because I
Exactly
get
my
that question
thoughts.
a lot.
Well, it's funny because I've had a couple of people message me and okay. I've had a couple I've had a couple people message me and they're like, I've been on the ship. I've traveled to the pool. This was several years ago and Jackie's no longer there. I helped her cross over. I'm like, you and four
Oh,
other people within the past span of 7 years have told
right.
me.
Do you know how many times I've heard that? I've
Yeah.
probably heard that 20 times.
Like I felt her go through me. I felt her cross over. And I'm like, well, that's funny because five other people felt the
Mhm.
same way too within a span of like this time frame. I feel like people feel like they really have a connection to the ship and they have this power where they can like really control what's on there, but really you can't. Like you
No,
said
you can't.
before.
Yeah. God, you bring up a good point. You know, that's and maybe not everyone agrees with me, and that's fine, but
Mm.
I don't I don't like it when people say I crossed someone over.
Yeah.
Well, if it's an intelligent entity, that entity would have made the decision
Yes.
to move on. You would have helped facilitate.
Right.
But I always feel like, do you take credit for that? Do we
Mm.
have ownership over a spirit like that? No, we don't.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Knowing
I
my
don't.
ass as a spirit, I'm like, I already hate to be told what to do. Like,
Oh
excuse me,
God.
I want to stay here a little longer on this ship. I don't want to
Yeah.
be crossed
Yeah.
over. Don't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Jackie's been Hollywoodized, sadly,
Yeah.
as some
Yeah.
others on
Mhm.
board.
And even if
But
what they're feeling is like what they actually felt, so many times with confirmation bias, it could be like our dreams are often our subconscious giving us what it thinks that we want. So you're
that's
having this
true.
dream and you're like, why am I having this dream like that? I hate it. And your subconscious is like, I don't know. You're hungry for this. Like, here, just have it. And I think there's an element of that where it's like, I'm going to be the one that helps her pass over. And whatever's there is like, yeah, here you go. Like, if
Here you
that's
go.
what you need,
That's an
great.
ego thing. It's such
It's
an ego
ego.
thing.
It's just
Yeah,
ego.
it's ego. That's exactly what it is.
I
Oh my
agree.
gosh.
And that we see a lot of that in the paranormal here in the
Oh,
Unfortunately, yeah.
unfortunately, like I've been seeing this quite often. Like the call is always coming from within the house. Like it's like I feel
Mhm.
like at times we do more damage than what we think is
Yeah.
good. And when it comes to
Absolutely.
the Queen Mary, I feel like that is such a great observation and a testament
Mhm.
that we need to really nurture the history and
Mhm.
honor those who passed on the ship and not make a mockery out of
Yes,
it. And
absolutely. Thank you so much for saying that.
and
Thank
that is
you.
something I mean I've tried. I think that's why Bryson and myself hesitated to always do an episode on it because I've always wanted to do it justice.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I mean there's so many parts that we could go on with the Queen Mary. It's just and that's the thing, it keeps on continuously going on. There's constantly
Mm.
like something always happening on the ship and
Oh, I
there's
know.
so many like
There's
it's so many pieces of this.
YouTubers
Yeah, there's so many
that
holes too. And
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, it could get complicated too when you're talking about
Mhm.
it. And I've heard many different types of podcasts say 20 different things about its history. And I'm like, well, what's true?
Mm.
So it's pretty hard to get a precise count of everything that has occurred on that ship. But
Yes.
That's so true. It's
yeah.
so true. And sadly, it's been Hollywoodized.
Oh yeah.
If it brings the ship money, that's a good thing. But then on the other hand, I tend to be protective and but
Ah.
it's one of those things. It's like I think that, oh gosh, this is gonna sound so crazy again. And coming from me, but it's like I think she's in charge in some way or another. Like
Mm.
she
No,
will
she
eventually
is.
get what she wants, It's like this, I don't know. I know that sounds weird and crazy, but
No,
that's what I
because like
feel.
she was closed for a while and people were really worried about her. They're like, oh my
Mhm.
God, is she going to be, taken apart and sold or sunken in the Atlantic somewhere? And I'm like, I doubt it. I think
Mm-mm.
she can't go away. This is too much of a huge piece of history, especially for the
Yeah.
city, of Long Beach. Like there's just no way. It's a big tourist spot, and
Oh, huge.
I don't think they will get
Huge.
rid of her that way. She's not going to go down. No. I think
No.
she'll be around
No.
for a very long
And
time.
now that the city of Long Beach is now in control, which hasn't been done since what,
Exactly.
1978, I believe.
Well,
That's
Mhm.
good in my opinion. That's
Mhm.
a good move. So
yeah.
Agreed. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for
Yes.
thank
being
you
a part
guys.
of our podcast. We're definitely going to have you back on because this is just
Sure.
amazing. And, props to you being a female in this industry too, because we rarely do see that. And
Yeah.
it's just been an honor to sit down and talk to you and just like kind of pick your brain on many things. And
thank you so much. Likewise.
Mhm.
I feel a kinship with you. It's kind of like the same viewpoints, that the same level of respect, like we're coming from the same point, which is really neat. So thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, that's synchronicities, right? Like,
yeah, I know.
I wouldn't have been introduced to you had I not heard this podcast. But I mean, this podcast popped up, and you were the first episode I listened to, and
Crazy.
I just felt like
so
we needed to do this.
Yeah.
But please, like, drop any handles, drop any projects, any talks where people can stalk you, where people can find you.
So my website, author NicoleStrickland.com, that's my main one there. My team's website is San Diego Paranormal Research.com. I need to update it. It's kind of crappy right now. Let's see, Facebook, my main page is at Nicole D. Strickland, and then of course Instagram at author Nicole Strickland, and then Twitter, I'm on it, but I don't go on it that much. It's just me. I need to get better with it. The acronym there, or the handle there, is at SDPRS Nicole. And then let's see, I have like 12 presentations coming up. It's just one of those crazy years, libraries and online conferences and whatnot. And then some podcasts, and then a tentative filming project I can't talk about now, but then also the Afterlife Chronicles is on hiatus. I'm kind of revamping it, so I'll let you guys know when that debuts. But Haunted Voices Radio, I co-host with Todd Bates through WLTKDB, and that's Thursday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific. So, and we would love to have you both on that show if you guys want.
Let us know. Let us know when. We'll be there in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Todd would just love you guys. And I think that'd be an amazing show to have you both on. So
we'll definitely have our listeners come on board. Definitely. Oh my God.
Totally. Oh my gosh, this has been such a fun. What is it, like an hour? Oh my gosh, it's an hour and a half. It's been so fun.
It's been an hour and 23 minutes. I mean, it's fine. We're gonna go over. We had a lot to talk about, and
I know it's so fun. It goes by fast.
It really did help. It did help me a lot in my process, and I know it's going to help many people, because I mean, I received a lot of people's messages of condolences, but also their stories of loss and grief. Like people who have lost animals 15 years ago and they still get a tear in their eye. Like it never goes away. And those feelings, if I could end it, they are validated. Those animals are not just animals. They're our family. They're our soulmates. They're everything to us. If they were able to sleep in our beds or sleep by our sides, they're our family. And they're our kinship.
Absolutely. I don't know if we have time. I was gonna read.
No, go for it. Go for it.
I should have queued it up earlier, but I was gonna read this poem. It's opening up in Microsoft Word that my mom wrote here. I'm seeing if it'll open. I don't want to keep you guys over.
No,
It's
go right ahead.
I don't know why my stupid Word is like taking forever to open.
Okay.
This is just very, very quick. My mom wrote this.
Aww.
And it's one of those poems that just sticks with your heart. My mom's a really good poet. So this is what she wrote when her cat Trixie passed many years ago. And this is what she said: "Go to sleep, my little ones, for your journey has just begun, to frolic in the meadows and bask beneath the sun. No loneliness for you when you awake today. So close your eyes and go to sleep, and love will lead the way." Excuse me, I'm starting to cry. Yeah. So
don't cry.
It's really beautiful.
Cry. And then Bryce is gonna ugly cry.
Oh, y'all know. I'm already.
We can all have an ugly cry, but
there we go.
Absolutely.
That was really beautiful.
So, I know.
Thank you. Yeah, my mom wrote that.
It's so lovely.
That is very lovely. Once again, Nicole.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. And to everyone out there that is going through pet loss, or has gone through it, or is currently going through it right now, you're not alone. And real quickly, I'm just going to drop some 2 podcasts that I really want you guys to listen to. And if it helps support our listeners, they've been helping me tremendously. And obviously, Nicole knows knows this one very well. It's the Rainbow Bridge Connection, the pet loss support podcast hosted by Kayla. And this other one is really great. It's called the Pet Loss Companion. It is led by two pet grief counselors. And they also host a show on YouTube. It's a live show, I think once or twice a week, where you could go on there and share your pet loss story. It's been such a great therapeutic listen, because it really does show you that you're not alone, that are people suffering the loss of their beloved animals, whether they're furry, feathery, or reptilian. It doesn't matter. We've all like gone through it or going through it right now. So once again, good. Nicole, thank you. We'll see you very soon. We know, I already know it. I already want to go to San Diego.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Come on down. Oh my gosh. Totally. Oh, totally. Go to Queen Mary, do all that good stuff. San Diego, you bet. Thank you guys so much tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nicole, and have a wonderful night. And much love to you guys.
This episode is dedicated to Mia Marie Chavez, one of the best fur babies in the world. All of them are. And this also is dedicated to those who have lost their furry loved ones, or even feathery loved ones or reptilian pets. Regardless, they were our pets and they were part of our family, and they will never be forgotten. And I just want to leave with this one antidote. With grief, it can be the shadow that follows us after loss, but also reminds us of the light that once shone. Once again, another huge thank you to paranormal researcher and author and mother of cats, Nicole Strickland. If you want to learn more about Nicole or follow her on her social media, you can find her at www.authornicolestrickland.com or www.sandiegoParanormalResearch.com and www.spiritedqueenmary.com if you want to learn more about her writings and her books in regards to the almighty Queen Mary here in Long Beach. Then we highly recommend that you do. And you can find her on Facebook and Instagram at author Nicole Strickland, at Twitter at SDPRS And you can also find her and her paranormal research group on Facebook, which is SDPRS. If you love Hollyweird Paranormal and you want to follow us and find out more about us, then you can follow us on our website at www.hollyweirdparanormal.com. You could get caught up with past episodes and seasons, shop our merch store, and even find more information about our Patreon and where you can follow us on social media. We are found on Facebook and Instagram at Hollyweird Paranormal, as well as on Threads, and we are at HWP Podcast on the formerly known Twitter website, which is now X. Okay, speaking of Patreon, you can head on over and support the podcast on Patreon. We're at www.patreon.com/Hollyweird Paranormal. For as little as $1 or more per month, you can actually indulge in a secret podcast that we have there. It's called Saturday Night Ghost Club. If you can't get enough of Hollyweird Paranormal ghost stories, well, we have some collected and recorded from the mouths of our neighbors, our friends, and coworkers of their real life paranormal experiences. So they're all there ready to be listened to. You'll also be gifted in goodies such as stickers, magnets, and coasters. And we'll also be providing with more video footage of our interview, such as this one with Nicole as well. If you have a few minutes, can you please, pretty please head on over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating and review. It truly helps us indie podcasters out a lot, helps us become a little more visible. And if you have a real ghost story that you're dying to share with us, no pun intended, then send it on over to our email at hollyweirdparanormal@gmail.com. We're still collecting stories for our next Listener's Tales episodes. Okay, friends, always remember to take care of yourselves and each other, and of course, your animals, your pets, your fur babies. Hold them close for us tonight. But most of all, we want you guys to always stay Hollyweird. Till next time, friends.